Welcome back aboard the Zephyrus. I am Captain Victor T. Mayfair, and this is the Mythos Anthology. One of the things that I love most about our podcast is that when we look back at some of our characters, we look at the evolution of mythology. We look at how these stories have changed. And one of the things that's really kind of modern to us is Wicked, Oz. When we look back at the story of the Wizard of Oz, came out in the early 1900s, we see a story that has changed and grown into something that is currently a phenomenon. But most people don't realize that Oz is not one story. It's actually the first of 40 books that were written between 1900 and 1963. They're called The Fabulous 40. Book 7 of that series has a very interesting character called the Patchwork Girl of Oz, Scraps. But we had a chance to sit down with Scraps and talk to her about Oz and Wicked and how mythology has changed over time. Let's go back to that interview. Let's talk with Scraps. Good morning, Scraps. Thank you for taking time with us today. I'm sure with all the buzz going around about the new Wicked movies, your world is quite busy.
Good morning, Captain Mayfair. It's an absolute delight to be with you aboard this marvelous Zephyr of yours. Oh, the magic of Oz may have its roots in fairyland, but the buzz of the outside world about those new movies adds a delightful hum, doesn't it? Oz has always been a lively place, but when people in your world start exploring it anew, be it through films, books, or even just a passing fancy, it feels like a fresh breeze stirring in the poppy fields. You see, Oz isn't just Dorothy and Toto, though they've certainly put us on the map, so to speak. There are entire realms beyond the yellow brick road, brimming with quirky characters, dazzling adventures, and a vibrancy that's as boundless as the patches on my bodice. I just think it's wonderful that these new movies keep spinning the threads of Oz's tapestry in ways that invite people to imagine what's possible. It makes me want to pirouette right through the Emerald City.
For our listeners who may not fully understand the depth of the world of Oz books, could you explain a little bit about the man himself, Mr. Baum?
L. Frank Baum, the man behind the curtain, as it were. Though I dare say he wasn't hiding, he was weaving wonders for all to see. Mr. Baum was a true dreamer, a storyteller with a spark of magic in his pen and a heart full of curiosity. Born in 1856, he grew up in a time when the world seemed to be changing faster than a Kansas whirlwind, and I think that shaped his imagination. He had an eye for the fantastical and a knack for making the impossible feel as cozy as a fireside tale. Now, you see, the marvelous thing about Mr. Baum was his belief that children deserve stories filled with wonder and joy, free from the grim lessons and moralizing of older fairy tales. When he published The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900, he gave the world a place that felt alive, with its Emerald City gleaming and its roads paved with gold, or yellow brick at least. It was an instant sensation, but what truly set him apart was his willingness to listen to his readers. He didn't just write stories, he expanded the world of Oz because children clamored for more adventures, and oh, did he deliver! Now, over the course of 14 books, he crafted a land as rich and varied as the colors on my quilted skin, filled with talking animals, wizards, witches, and all manner of marvelous things. He had a wonderful knack for creating creatures that were not just fanciful, but deeply human in their hopes, fears, and quirks. And though Mr. Baum himself passed away in 1919, the Land of Oz carried on, as if he left the door ajar for others to step through and continue the tale. He wasn't just a writer. He was a showman, a dreamer, a man who saw the value in whimsy and the power of a well-told story. Oz was a gift to the world, and my, what a gift it has been.
I think most people like me grew up on the story The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the movie. That wasn't the only story in the series, however, and was that drawn from one book, or was that drawn across a few of them in the series, and where did that fit in the chronology of the books?
Oh, Captain, you've hit upon something I wish everyone knew. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, that grand, glittering gem of a story, It's just the first chapter in a much larger tapestry. The movie you're talking about, the 1939 classic with Judy Garland, is mostly based on that first book. Though it takes a few liberties here and there, it doesn't delve into the many, many adventures that followed the vastness of Oz as a whole. That's where the real surprise lies. Now, in the books, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz introduces Dorothy Gale, a girl from Kansas who gets swept away to Oz in a cyclone and embarks on her quest to see the wizard and return home. That's where she meets the Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, and Cowardly Lion, and, of course, melts the Wicked Witch of the West. It's delightful in the beginning, but that's just the tip of the emerald iceberg. The series continues with The Marvelous Land of Oz, where the focus shifts to new characters like Tip and General Ginger, and introduces the fabulous Glinda, and the return of Scarecrow and Tin Woodman in new roles. Dorothy doesn't return until the third book, Ozma of Oz, where she helps rescue Ozma, the rightful ruler of Oz, and from there, the series explodes with new lands, characters, and adventures, such as the Patchwork Girl herself, who debuts in the Patchwork Girl of Oz. That's my moment to shine, baby, of course. The movie, for all its charm, only scratches the surface. It borrows pieces from here and there, like making the Wicked Witch of the West larger-than-life villain, which isn't quite how she's portrayed in the book. But it never touches on the deeper lore, like Ozma's story, the Enchanted Forest, or the realms beyond the Emerald City, such as the land of Winkies and Gilligan Country. So while the movie is a wonderful introduction, it really just is the gateway to a much larger world. There's so much more to discover. If only folks would follow the yellow brick road beyond the first chapter.
But the story that I know from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is indeed the beginning of all the stories.
Exactly right, Captain. It was just the beginning. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is the spark that lit the golden flame of Oz, but it by no means is the whole story. It laid the foundation for what would grow into a sprawling, magical world of twists, turns, and surprises. You might say it's the first step onto the yellow brick road, but oh, what wonders lie beyond that path? Think of it this way. Baum introduced us to Dorothy and the Land of Oz in that first book, but Oz itself is so much more than Dorothy's journey. The story expands in unexpected directions with each new book. After Dorothy returns to Kansas at the end of the first tale, the second book, The Marvelous Land of Oz, picks up with a new character named Tip, who sets off on his own adventure. And I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say there's a marvelous transformation that ties directly into the heart of Oz's ruling legacy. And then there's Ozma, the rightful ruler of Oz, who finally takes her throne in Ozma of Oz and becomes one of the central figures of the series. Dorothy returns too while traveling to Oz again and again, but she shares the spotlight with so many others like the Shaggy Man, TikTok, the Wogglebug, and, well, me. The world blossoms into something far richer and more complex than just a single story about getting home. So yes, the first book is the beginning, but it's also an invitation. Oz grows and evolves with every tale Baum penned, becoming a place that isn't just about Dorothy and her companions, but a vibrant, living world with infinite adventures. And for anyone curious enough to dive in, there's always another corner of Oz to explore.
So as I understand it, there are what's called the Fabulous 40. There were the 14 original books that Baum wrote. Can you give me a quick explanation of what those are and kind of an outline of his original 14?
Oh, what a delightful request. I'd be thrilled to whisk you through Mr. Baum's original 14 Oz books, each one a patch in the grand quilt of his magical land. Here they are, with a quick peek into what makes each one special. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, 1900, The Classic Beginning, Dorothy's Cyclone Adventure, her meeting with the Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, and the Cowardly Lion to defeat the Wicked Witch of the West. Number 2, The Marvelous Land of Oz, 1904. Tip, a young boy, escapes from the Witch of Mombi and embarks on a journey with Jack Pumpkinhead and the Sawhorse, leading to the revelation of Ozma, the rightful ruler of Oz. Coming in at number 3 is Ozma of Oz, 1907. Dorothy's return to Oz, where she finds her friends, rescues the royal Ozma from the Gnome King, who's hoarding the treasure of the land of Ev. Number 4, Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz, 1908. Dorothy and her cousin Zeb fall into the underground realms of Oz after an earthquake and journey through bizarre lands and reach the Emerald City. Number 5 is The Road to Oz, 1909. Dorothy meets a colorful cast of characters, including the Shaggy Man and Button Bright, as she follows a mysterious road that leads to Ozma's grand birthday celebration. Number 6 is The Emerald City of Oz, 1910. Dorothy moves permanently to Oz with her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, just in time to help thwart an invasion by the Gnome King and his allies. Number 7, The Patchwork Girl of Oz, 1913, my grand debut. Oho the Unlucky sets out to gather magical items to save his Uncle Nunky, and I, the vivacious Patch Girl, spring to life to join him. Number 8, TikTok of Oz, 1914. Betsy Bobbin and the Mechanical Man TikTok join forces with Queen Anne and a dragon named Quox to rescue the Shaggy Man's brother from the Gnome King. Now, number 9, The Scarecrow of Oz, 1915. Trot and Captain Bill are shipwrecked in a strange land and eventually find their way to Oz, where they help the Scarecrow reclaim the throne of Jinxland. Number 10, Rinkatink in Oz, 1916. Prince Inga of Pingaree, along with the Jolly King Rinkatink and his goat Bilbil, ventures to Oz to retrieve stolen treasures and rescue his parents. Number 11 is The Lost Princess of Oz, 1917. Ozma and all her magical items mysteriously vanish, and Dorothy, the wizard, and their friends embark on a quest to save her and the kingdom. Coming in at number 12 is The Tin Woodman of Oz, 1918. The Tin Woodman searches for his long-lost love, Nimmy-Amee, accompanied by the Scarecrow, Woot the Wanderer, and a curious creature called the Woozy. Number 13, The Magic of Oz, 1919. A mischievous boy named Kiki Aru and the Gnome King plot to overthrow Oz, but Dorothy and her friends use cleverness and magic to foil their plans. Last but certainly not least is Glinda of Oz, 1920. Dorothy and Ozma journey to settle a dispute between two warring tribes, only to find themselves trapped in an underwater city, relying on Glinda's magic to save them. And there you have it, a whirlwind tour through the wonders of Baum's Oz. Each tale adds more charm and characters and color to this extraordinary world, making it endlessly enchanting.
That would mean that Glinda of Oz was the last book in the series actually written by Mr. Baum. And as I understand, he passed away in 1919?
Yes, Captain, you've got it exactly right. Glinda of Oz was the final book in the series penned by Mr. Baum himself. He sadly passed on May 6, 1919, leaving behind this legacy as rich and enduring as the Emerald City itself. The book was published posthumously in 1920, a final gift from the Royal Historian of Oz to his devoted readers. In Glinda of Oz, we see Dorothy and Ozma venturing into some of the lesser-known corners of Oz to bring peace to two warring tribes, the Flatheads and the Skeezers. It's a tale full of danger, intrigue, and, of course, the ever-dependable magic of Glinda. The underwater city of Skeezers is a particularly fascinating bit of Baum's imagination, showing once again his knack for creating marvels that feel both whimsical and profound. Though Mr. Baum's health was failing as he wrote it, his imagination never dimmed. You can feel his love for Oz and its characters in every word, as if he were tying a bow on this marvelous gift that he shared with the world. Even so, Oz didn't end with him. The magic he conjured was too strong to fade, and other writers would soon pick up where he left off, ensuring that the land of Oz continued to grow and thrive. Baum's passing marked the end of an era, but oh, what a legacy he left behind. A land where dreams take root, adventures never cease, and everyone, no matter how different, can find a place to belong. What a life he lived, and what a world he gave us.
As you may know, our podcast is dedicated to mythology and folklore, and we tend to work with stories written so long ago that its original authors are forgotten time. For me, Oz is super unique in that we see a modern mythos being formed. What started with one man's dreams and stories and lessons of life has carried on in ways that I doubt he could have ever imagined. And so many books written after his passing, the new wicked plays and movies taking over. As a creation of Mr. Baum, how do you think he would feel about what has become of his work?
Oh, Captain Mayfair, what a thoughtful question. If I may be bold, I think Mr. Baum would be positively delighted, tickled emerald green, you might say, by the way his creation has grown and evolved. He was a man who loved the idea of stories living and breathing, changing and growing, just like the patchwork that makes me who I am. His Oz wasn't meant to be a static thing, confined to the pages he wrote. It was a world he built to spark imaginations, to invite others to dream alongside him. You see, Baum once said he wanted to create a modern fairy tale that would replace the grim, moralistic stories of old with something bright and hopeful. I think he would be thrilled to know that Oz didn't just entertain, it inspired. He'd likely be astonished to see how his characters and stories have been reimagined and retold in ways that resonate with new generations. From Wicked reinterpreting the so-called Wicked Witch to new films and adaptations exploring facets of Oz he never even touched. I mean, it's clear his creation has taken on a life of its own. And isn't that what myths are meant to do? They grow beyond their origins, reflecting the dreams and struggles of those who tell them. Oz has become a living mythos, shaped not just by Baum's vision, but by everyone who has been enchanted by it. Whether it's a musical that makes people rethink what it means to be wicked, or a novel that spins a new tale, some forgotten corner of the land, it all speaks to the enduring power of the world that Baum has built. I think he'd marvel at the idea that people see Oz as more than just a series of books. It's a land of endless possibility. A place where courage, kindness, and imagination reign supreme. Baum himself may not have imagined the countless forms Oz would take, but I believe he would see it as the highest compliment, that his dreams sparked others to dream even bigger. If you ask me, he'd probably be standing right alongside us on this marvelous Zephyrus, tipping his hat and saying, "What a wonderful journey this has been."
Wow, wouldn't that be amazing if he could be here with us today? As I understand, though, he wrote the 14 books that you covered, but there are what's considered the fabulous or the famous 40 that are truly the canon of Oz.
The magic of Oz doesn't stop with Mr. Baum's pen. No, indeed. While the original 14 books are his creation, the Land of Oz proved too enchanting to stay confined to one author's imagination. After Mr. Baum's passing, his publisher, Riley and Lee, invited another writer to carry on the series, and thus began what fans fondly call the famous 40. The baton was first passed to Ruthie Plumley Thompson, a gifted storyteller who added 19 books of her own to the series. Thompson had a lighter, more often humorous touch as she expanded on Oz's geography and lore with new characters and lands. For instance, in the Royal Book of Oz, she explains how the Scarecrow's backstory actually reveals his origins as a Munchkin farmer. Other authors then followed, including John R. Neal, who had been the illustrator of the series since Baum's days. He wrote 3 books, and oh, what a whimsical flair he brought. Then came Jack Snow, Rachel Cosgrove Pays, and Eloise Jarvis McGraw, each contributing their own unique spin on the world of Oz. The famous 40 is the collective name for all these official sequels, recognized by fans as a continuation of Baum's original vision. Even though they're written by different hands, they really expand the boundaries of Oz, introducing new friends like Kabumpo, the elegant elephant, Sir Hokus of Pokes, and the captivating Trot and Betsy Bobbin, both of whom were first penned by Baum and given more adventures by later authors. This shared authorship is part of what makes Oz so special. It's not just Baum's world, it's a world that has invited others to step in, dream a little, and add their stitches to the ever-growing quilt. While purists may hold tight to the original 14, many fans see the famous 40 as a testament to Oz's enduring magic, proof that it's a land with no end to its wonders. So when you hear the 40, think of it as Oz growing and thriving, as if the yellow brick road simply kept winding on, leading to new stories, new adventures, and new reasons to fall in love with the land of Oz.
That is quite a list of authors. When was the last of those famous 40 published?
The last of the famous 40 was published in 1963. It's called Merry-Go-Round in Oz, and it was written by Eloise Jarvis McGraw and her daughter, Lauren McGraw Wagner. This delightful book marked the end of the officially recognized Oz series from Riley and Lee, bringing a close to a new era, canonically, Adventures in the Magical Land. Merry-Go-Round in Oz is a charming tale that intertwines the journeys of Robin Brown. He's a boy from the outside world and a roundabout magical escapades within Oz itself. It's notable for weaving a sense of whimsy and nostalgia while remaining true to the spirit of Baum's original works. The story brought a sense of completion to the famous 40, even as fans continued to imagine Oz's endless possibilities. While Merry-Go-Round in Oz was the last official entry, the spirit of Oz has lived on through countless adaptations, retellings, and unofficial sequels. The Land of Oz has never truly closed its gates, and perhaps it never will.
Wow, that would mean that the original 40 were published for over 63 years. And those are some very, very big years. What were there? 2 world wars, race riots, huge advances in technology. And we talk about how mythology or mythos migrate to fill the needs of the times in which they are told. Can we see the reflections of some of the real world in Oz? Or was the intent to keep the world pure for the children that they were written for?
You're absolutely right. Those 63 years were a time of seismic change in your world. Wars, social upheaval, technological marvels. The very fabric of life was being rewoven. And though the authors of Oz intended the series to be a haven for children, free from the harshness of the outside world, it's impossible to completely shield a story from the influences of the time. Oz is, after all, a creation of people, and people carry their world with them, even into fairylands. In Baum's original works, you can see glimmers of the real world shining through. Take the Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, and the Cowardly Lion. They reflect Baum's personal views on self-worth, courage, and the need for a balanced heart, mind, and spirit. It's subtle, but these themes speak to the struggles and aspirations of the human condition. Things that were especially poignant in the early 20th century when industrialization and societal shifts were transforming daily life. Later authors like Ruth Plumley Thompson and John R. Neal inherited this balance of whimsy and underlying humanity. Thompson, for instance, often celebrated individuality and creativity, perhaps as a nod to the era of the roaring innovation she lived through. Neal's tales, with their fantastical visuals and quirky characters, seem to embrace the escapism people craved during the Great Depression and the tumultuous years that followed. Even The Emerald City of Oz, written by Baum himself, carries a touch of reflection on the real world. When Aunt Em and Uncle Henry finally moved to Oz, it's because they've been financially ruined back in Kansas. It's a gentle acknowledgement of hardships like poverty and economic instability, while offering the dream of a magical place where such troubles don't exist. The post-Baum authors kept Oz as a sanctuary, yet the echoes of their times filtered through the themes of friendship, perseverance, and justice. The series never delved into politics or war outright. It wasn't meant to, but the values it upheld resonated with the challenges and dreams of each new generation. Oz has remained timeless because it offered a vision of a better world, one where problems could be solved with cleverness and compassion, and where the unlikely heroes like a girl from Kansas, a patchwork girl, or a tin man could shine. So while Oz wasn't a direct mirror of the world, it was a place where the real world's hopes and fears could find gentle expression, wrapped in the safe, shimmering cloak of fairyland. It's why Oz has endured, and it changes just enough to reflect the heat and heart of the times, while always promising a brighter, kinder tomorrow.
I'd like to come back to that thought in just a little bit, but for now, let me jump to a slightly different topic. At the moment, the world of Oz is alive with activity because of the movie adaptation of the Broadway play Wicked. But movies and plays are not new to Oz. As I understand, Mr. Baum himself wrote a number of screen adaptations, including the first Broadway play in 1902.
Oz has had a flair for the stage and screen from the very beginning, and Mr. Baum himself was at the heart of the excitement. The first Broadway adaptation, The Wizard of Oz, debuted in 1902. I mean, just 2 years after the original book was published. It was a smash hit. A whimsical extravaganza filled with music, comedy, and a few surprising twists that weren't in the book. Like the making of Tin Woodman a romantic lead and introducing a cow named Imogene. Baum, ever the showman, embraced the opportunity to bring Oz to life in new ways. Though the play took some liberties with the story, it captured the public's imagination and helped cement Oz's place as a cultural phenomenon. It also showed that Oz could adapt to different forms of storytelling, a theme that's carried through its history. As for Baum's own scripts, he was deeply involved in adapting his work. He wrote and produced several stage and screen projects, including the Fairy Log and radio plays in 1908, a multimedia touring show that combined live narration, hand-colored slides, and even early film clips. It was ambitious, ahead of its time, and unfortunately, a financial flop. But Baum's passion for bringing Oz to life through performance never wavered. He later worked on The Tick-Tock Man of Oz, a stage play based on Ozma of Oz and Tick-Tock of Oz. Though it wasn't as successful as the 1902 musical, it showcased Baum's dedication to expanding Oz's reach beyond the page. And let's not forget the films. Before the iconic 1939 movie, there were silent film adaptations, some of which Baum himself helped create through his Oz Film Manufacturing Company. These included the Patchwork Girl of Oz, my dazzling debut on film, and His Majesty, the Scarecrow of Oz. These films brought the magic of Oz to a new medium, though they too struggled to find a wide audience at the time. All these efforts laid the groundwork for Oz's enduring appeal in theater and film. From Baum's own adaptations to the glittering success of Wicked on Broadway and its current film version, Oz has always been a world ready to leap off the page and into the hearts of audiences everywhere. It's as if the Land of Oz was always meant to dance and sing, shimmering under the spotlight for all to see.
I hadn't been aware that there were early versions of films, including one of your stories. Have any of those survived? And more importantly, what about this Broadway show? Is there any documentation or information from its production?
Sadly, that production hasn't survived in full. There are no recordings, only photographs and some scripts, but its legacy shines on as one of the first major successes to carry Oz beyond the page. As for films, oh my patches, Mr. Baum was quite the visionary. He founded the Oz Film Manufacturing Company in 1914 and produced several silent films based on his stories. These included The Patchwork Girl of Oz, starring me, of course, along with His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz and The Magic Cloak of Oz. They were charming attempts to bring the magic of Oz to life on the silver screen, though audience of the time didn't quite know what to make of such fantastical tales in this newfangled medium. But here's the wonderful news. Some of those films have survived. Restorations of The Patchwork Girl of Oz and His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz can be found in archives and on classical film collections. With a bit of searching, you might even find them streaming or on a DVD. Watching them is like peeking through a window into the early days of cinema, with Oz's magic flickering to life in glorious black and white. So yes, Captain, these early treasures are still out there, waiting for curious eyes to rediscover them. A little grainy and quaint, perhaps, but brimming with the same heart and whimsy that Oz has always had. If you get the chance, they're worth every twinkling moment.
I'll need to make sure that our computer pulls up a copy for me. I'd love to see those. But clearly, the timeless classic movie, the 1939 Wonderful Wizard of Oz, is the core of most people's modern understanding of the world of Oz.
Captain Mayfair, you've hit upon the golden thread that connects so many people to Oz. The 1939 MGM film, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, is indeed the cornerstone of how most people see my world. It's a dazzling, technicolor jewel, a story so iconic it practically sings itself into people's hearts. And while it doesn't capture all of Oz, it really is no wonder it's become the defining image. Ruby slippers and all, that film brought Baum's vision to life in a way that never has been done before. Imagine the wonder of audiences seeing the black and white Kansas burst into full color as Dorothy stepped into Oz. The Emerald City, the Munchkins, even the Wicked Witch. Oh, my Patches! They all leapt off the screen with such vibrancy that Oz felt like it could just be right there over the rainbow for anyone watching. Of course, there are a few twists and tweaks. The ruby slippers, for instance, are a sparkling invention of the movie. In Baum's book, Dorothy's shoes were actually silver. And the Wicked Witch of the West, so fearsome and iconic in the film, was a much smaller presence in the original story. The movie blended Baum's tale with the magic of Hollywood, creating something uniquely on its own while introducing the world to Oz's charm and wonder. Yet, as much as I adore that film for opening the gates of Oz to so many, it's just one piece of the grand quilt. It only tells Dorothy's first adventure, and oh, there is so much more. The film doesn't touch on Ozma's royal story or Glinda's deeper role, or, well, me. But it serves a lovely invitation, a golden key to a much larger world. For all its differences, that movie captures the spirit of Oz beautifully. Its heart, its courage, and its brains, if you will. And thanks to that film, the land of Oz lives on in the minds of millions, proving that Baum's timeless dream can shine through any adaptation.
Our goal with Mythos Anthology is to bring mythology to life. And at the heart of this conversation is exploring how a story like The Wizard of Oz becomes a timeless classic. Specifically, why do you think that original story, that The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, has stood the test of time?
Why has The Wizard of Oz endured, you ask? I think it's because it's more than just a story. It's a living dream, woven from threads that speak to something deep within us all. At its heart, The Wizard of Oz captures universal truths in a way that's as simple as a Kansas prairie and as magical as a cyclone ride to another world. It's a story about finding home, but also about discovering that home isn't just a place, it's the people we love, the strength within ourselves, and the journey we take to understand both. I mean, who hasn't felt a little lost, a little unsure, and then found their courage, brains, or heart along the way? And let's not forget the sheer magic of Oz itself. It's a place where the extraordinary feels possible, a land where scarecrows think, tin men love, and lions learn to roar. Baum gave us a world brimming with wonder, but also grounded in kindness and hope. That mix of whimsy and wisdom is timeless. The story also thrives because it's endlessly adaptable. Each generation finds its own reflections in Oz. In the Great Depression, it was about overcoming hardship. In the age of civil rights, it reminded us to see the humanity in all, even those who are different. Today, it's a story of empowerment, of Dorothy, an ordinary girl, navigating an extraordinary world with grace and determination. Oz evolves because its heart, the idea that we're stronger together and that everyone, no matter how unlikely, can be a hero, never changes. And oh, Captain, let's not underestimate the allure of its characters. The Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, Cowardly Lion, Glinda, and yes, even me. We're all a little flawed, but full of heart, and people see pieces of themselves in us. That connection keeps the story alive in the imagination, a timeless patchwork quilt of dreams and values. Ultimately, The Wizard of Oz has stood the test of time because it reminds us of something we all need to hear, that there's no place like home, no challenge we can't face with a little courage, brains, and a heart, and no dream so big that it can't begin with the smallest, most unexpected steps, as golden and enduring as the yellow brick road itself.
I think people's biggest interest in us talking today is because, as we've said, Oz is experiencing a resurgence because of the screen adaptation of the Broadway play Wicked. Wicked, however, isn't part of the original core 40 of the Oz books, and in fact takes significant liberties with the original work. I'd like to discuss that for a bit, if you don't mind. Could you start, please, by providing me a brief history of the play now adapted into a series of movies?
Wicked is indeed a fascinating chapter in the ongoing story of Oz, a reimagining that dares to peel back the green curtain and ask, what if the Wicked Witch wasn't so wicked after all? It's a tale of sympathy, complexity, and the shades of gray that live between good and evil. Let me patch together its story for you. The seed for Wicked was planted in Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Maguire took the familiar world of Oz and flipped it on its head, reimagining the Wicked Witch Elphaba as a misunderstood outcast whose wickedness is shaped by prejudice, politics, and circumstance. It's a bold and poignant tale, full of sharp edges and echoes of your world struggles with identity and power. The book caught the eye of the composer, Stephen Schwartz, and playwright, Winnie Holzman, who saw its potential as a musical. In 2003, Wicked debuted on Broadway, and oh, what a sensation it was! The music, the spectacle, the emotional depth, it all struck a chord with audiences. Songs like Defying Gravity and Popular became instant classics, and the play went on to break records and hearts alike. The story focuses on the friendship between Elphaba, the Wicked Witch, and Glinda, the Good Witch, exploring their intertwined fates and the events that led to the familiar tale of the Wizard of Oz. Now, it casts a sympathetic light on Elphaba, showing her as a passionate, principled young woman misunderstood by the world around her. It's a tale of rivalry, friendship, and the high price of standing up for what you believe in. As for the upcoming film adaptation, well, it's no wonder that there's so much excitement. After enchanting audiences on stage for over 2 decades, Wicked is set to leap to the screen, bringing its tale of green-tinted humanity to an even wider audience. Now, Wicked isn't part of the original Famous 40 and takes quite a few liberties with Baum's Oz, but that's a part of its charm. It's not just a homage, it's a reimagining, a reflection of how stories grow and evolve to speak to new times and new hearts. It's a reminder that even in a land as magical as Oz, there are still stories waiting to be told, and perspective waiting to be explored. I mean, isn't that just wonderfully Ozian?
But for those who only know Wicked, can you explain how the story veers away from some of the original canon of Oz?
First, there's Elphaba herself. In Baum's books, the Wicked Witch of the West is a clear-cut villain, cunning and cruel, with no hint of sympathy or complexity. But Wicked turns her into a tragic figure, a misunderstood young woman, born green and shunned by society, whose actions are driven by principles rather than malice. It's a far cry from the flat, villainous character in the original. Then we must consider Glinda. In the Oz books, Glinda is the serene and wise good witch of the South, a figure of great power and composure. In Wicked, she begins a frivolous, popularity-obsessed young woman, and her journey towards maturity and selflessness forms a major part of the story. It's a charming reimagining, but not quite the Glinda that Baum introduced. The wizard himself is another major change. In Baum's tale, he's a bumbling but harmless humbug, a con man who ultimately redeems himself. In Wicked, he's cast as a darker, more manipulative figure, complicit in the oppression of Elphaba and the animals of Oz. It's a stark departure from its original, almost comical role. And then there's the land of Oz itself. In the books, Oz is a utopian fairyland where corruption and cruelty are largely confined to individual villains like the Wicked Witch. Wicked adds layers of political intrigue, societal prejudice, and moral ambiguity, creating a version of Oz that mirrors the complexities of your world. Lastly, the timeline is different. Wicked intertwines Elphaba's life with Dorothy's arrival, reframing events from the wonderful Wizard of Oz through Elphaba's perspective. Baum's original story focuses solely on Dorothy's adventure, with the Wicked Witch serving as an obstacle to overcome. So, while Wicked shares the same backdrop, its characters, themes, and even its moral compass are spun from an entirely new thread, it's Oz, but seen through a very different, very modern lens.
But as we see in mythology and folklore over and over, they grow to reflect the world and the times in which they are told. Political intrigue, societal prejudice, moral ambiguity, those are major points in today's world.
Captain Mayfair, you hit the nail right on the head. Or perhaps I should say you've stitched the perfect patch into the quilt. That's precisely what makes myths and folklore so enduring. They grow, they shift, they mirror the times and the people who tell them. And Wicked, both the book and the musical, do just that for today's world. You're absolutely right that political intrigue, social prejudice, and moral ambiguity are central to our modern stories. Wicked takes Oz and infuses it with these contemporary themes, creating a reflection of struggles, fears, and hopes of your time. Elphaba becomes a symbol for the misunderstood and marginalized, those whose voices are often silenced and dismissed. Her journey, her fight against a corrupt system, and even her tragic fall are all deeply resonant in a world grappling with inequality and injustice. Even Glinda's transformation, from a self-centered socialite to someone who begins to see the world's unfairness and her own complicity in it, feels achingly relevant. It speaks to the journey many face when confronted with uncomfortable truths about privilege and responsibility. And the wizard's portrayal as a manipulative, power-hungry leader who thrives on deception and scapegoating, well, doesn't that echo the mistrust and disillusionment many feel towards authority today? It adds a layer of real-world tension that Baum's original wizard, with his harmless humbuggery, never intended. Now, this evolution isn't a betrayal of Oz, but a testament to its strength as a living mythos. The heart of Oz, the questions of courage, kindness, and self-discovery remains intact. But Wicked uses that foundation to explore new angles, just as myths have always done. From Homer's Odyssey to Arthurian's legends, every enduring tale grows to reflect the dreams and dilemmas of its audience. So, yes, Captain, while Wicked may seem a far cry from Baum's original, it carries on the grand tradition of folklore to adapt, to evolve, and to speak to the hearts of those who need it most. It's not just the story of Oz. It's the story of Oz meeting the modern world, and oh, how brightly it shines.
What do you think people most misunderstand about Oz, and what is it that you wish they knew?
Now, that's a question as glittering as the Emerald City itself. I think what people most misunderstand about Oz is how vast, varied, and vibrant it truly is. For so many, Oz begins and ends with Dorothy and the Wicked Witch of the West. And now with Glinda and Elphaba, and while their story is iconic, it's just one golden brick on a much longer road. Oz is a world, not just a story. Beyond Dorothy's adventure, there are entire countries and characters waiting to be discovered. There's Ozma, the true and rightful ruler of Oz, whose story is one of transformation and kindness. There's the Shaggy Man, TikTok, the Mechanical Marvel, Jack Pumpkinhead, and, of course, Scraps, the Patchwork Girl. Each brings something unique, adding to the rich tapestry of Oz's mythos. What I wish people knew is that Oz isn't just about magic and whimsy. It's about heart, courage, and brains. It's a land where friendship triumphs over fear, where even the unlikeliest of heroes can make a difference, and where problems are solved with compassion and cleverness rather than violence. It's a fairyland, yes, but it's also a place of enduring values that resonate far beyond its sparkling borders. And most importantly, Oz is infinite. It has grown and changed, adapted and evolved, because it's not just Baum's creation anymore. It belongs to everyone who's ever dreamed of it, told a new story, or imagined what might lie over the next rainbow. That's the magic of Oz, Captain, and it's why this quilted girl is proud to be a part of its ever-expanding wonder.
Okay, as we near the end of our time, let me give you a fun challenge. If you could travel down the famous yellow brick road with any 4 characters, who would your dream team be from any of the books?
Oh, Captain Mayfair, what a delightful thought to end on. Skipping down the yellow brick road with a hand-picked team? Why, it makes me want to pirouette with excitement. If I could choose my dream team from all the wonderful characters in Oz, here's the patchwork party I'd assemble. First, I'd bring Scarecrow, my dear brainy friend. He's got the cleverness to solve any puzzle, and his gentle humor would keep the journey lively. Plus, I simply adore how he thinks outside the box, or should I say, outside the cornfield. Next, I'd invite TikTok, the Clockwork Man. His mechanical precision and steadfast loyalty would make him an excellent traveling companion. He might wind down now and then, but isn't that just an excuse to pause and enjoy the scenery? Now, if I wanted to add a bit of boldness, I'd add Scraps, the Patchwork Girl. Wait, that's me. I suppose I'd have to bring someone equally whimsical. So I choose Jack Pumpkinhead. His cheerful spirit and knack for bringing a smile would brighten even the gloomiest part of the road. Besides, I think a pumpkin and a patchwork doll would make quite the dashing duo. Finally, I'd round out the group with Ozma, the heart and soul of Oz. Her wisdom, kindness, and magic would guide us when the road gets rough, and her presence alone would remind us why we're journeying in the first place, to uphold the beauty and harmony of our marvelous land. What a team we would make! Brains, courage, kindness, and whimsy all wrapped in one glorious adventure. I can almost hear the Munchkins cheering us on already.
Scraps, it has been such fun having you here today and getting your insight into this amazing world. I have no doubt that the mythos of Oz will endure for hundreds of years to come. But let me ask you the question we ask most of our guests at this point in the interview. What do you hope for the future of Oz and its wonderful characters?
Oh, Captain Mayfair, it's been an absolute whirl of joy to share this time with you. As for the future of Oz, my patched-up heart hopes for a world where its magic continues to inspire, delight, and evolve for generations to come. I do hope Oz remains a place where imaginations take root and grow wild, where new storytellers find threads to weave into their own tales, and where readers, young and old, discover something of themselves in its patchwork wonders. Let Oz always be a land of courage for those who feel small, or kindness for those who feel unseen, and of hope for anyone who ever feels lost. I hope its characters, whether they be Dorothy, Ozma, or even a patchwork girl like me, remain as vibrant and timeless as the dreams they represent. And oh, wouldn't it be marvelous if Oz kept opening its emerald gates to new voices, new perspectives, and new ways of exploring what it means to live, love, and dream? So my wish for the future of Oz is pretty simple. Captain, let it endure. Let it grow, and let it always remind us that there's no place like the heart, whether it's through books, plays, movies, or the imagination of those who carry its magic forward. May Oz remain a beacon of wonder in a sometimes weary world. And thank you, dear Captain, for carrying the torch of mythology and folklore with such care and curiosity. You've made this Patchwork Girl feel like a part of something truly timeless. Keep defying gravity, as they say in Wicked.
Thank you for being part of Mythos Anthology. We delve into the myths and legends of the past with the understanding that truth is often elusive and stories evolve over time. While we work hard to ensure accuracy and neutrality, it's important to remember that mythological studies are as much about interpretation as they are about facts. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com, where you'll find deep research archives, video content, interactive podcasts, and don't forget to try our AI character chats, where you can engage with digital recreations of our legendary guests.
Legends and myths from the past, stories that forever last.
The voice of Patches brought to life by Olivia Livy.
Of mortal men, tales that breathe and live again. Mythos Anthology, legends brought to modern times.
Mythos Anthology is a creation of writer-executive producer Victor Ciccarelli. All content, including audio, video, and written material, is protected under copyright law 2025 Pihana Productions. All rights reserved. Any unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this material is strictly prohibited. This episode includes material generated with the assistance of ChatGPT, an AI development of OpenAI used under license. All content has been reviewed and edited by the Mythos Anthology team to ensure accuracy and consistency. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com. Mythos Anthology, where echoes of ancient myths resonate with modern tools and creative minds.